Well, no surprise, like we've been talking about, Wall Street is bullish on Nvidia's results. A number of analysts boosting their price targets on the stock this morning, including our next guest, raising his price target on the back of those results from $1,200 to $1,300 a share. We have John Vinh, he's KeyBanc Capital Markets equity research analyst, joining us here. And John, just your first take on the quarter and whether or not this was exactly what the street wanted to hear at this point in the story.
Yeah, I believe that they came through in flying colors. I think the expectations kind of met kind of the whispered buy side expectations right now. I would say that right now going into earnings, obviously, as you had mentioned earlier, there was a little bit some consternation of maybe a demand pause ahead of the ramp of Blackwell. So the expectations weren't sky high, but certainly I think they certainly met the bar there.
Met the bar, and as we're taking a look at shares right now, pre-market, they're up by about 7%. The question continues to be, how do they build on top of this success, John? What do they need to continue to show the street?
Yeah, so I see a couple of kind of key catalysts in terms of their financial performance. Is in the second half, they're going to start ramping their next generation Blackwell GPUs. B100 is going to be the majority of the volume. The ASPs on those GPUs are going to be 40% higher. There's obviously also a lot more capacity coming online. CoWoS has been previously kind of a bottleneck. There's going to be a lot more supply coming online as well. And then as we transition in 2025, NVIDIA announced at their GTC conference this GB200 platform, and that's going to really kind of change the game here. You're going to go from NVIDIA shipping basically chips to their customers to shipping full server rack solutions. So you're seeing ASPs go from hundreds of thousands of dollars for these HGX boards to full stack server racks, which the ASPs are going to be closer to 1.5 to 2 million. So that's going to be a pretty significant driver in terms of revenue inflection going into next year as well.
John, one of the key takeaways from the earnings print and also from Yahoo Finance's exclusive interview with Jensen following those results was some of the pushback that he had. Just the narrative going into this print was whether or not some of their customers were going to be holding off on current orders, waiting for Blackwell chips and more advanced chips to arrive here in the future. He had pushed back on that. Is that at all still a concern for you, if it ever was?
It was a slight concern. I think they obviously had clearly addressed those concerns. He had said that H100 demand increased throughout Q1, and then he said Hopper demand is going to increasingly ramp throughout Q2. But the one thing I would say is that there is a little bit of sensitivity around kind of their China business. We believe that they've been shipping the H20, which is a compliant GPU, to the China market. It doesn't require an export license, and we think that was a meaningful contributor, like in the near term, to their financial results. And obviously, a pretty sensitive topic, because you've seen the Biden administration start to come down a little bit more harshly on what can and cannot be shipped to the China market.
John, investors, traders waking up this morning and trying to figure out if they didn't already have this as part of their strategy yesterday going into the print or even thereafter, whether now with a split that's announced and ultimately as that comes forward, it might, on cost at least, make it look cheaper to a lot of retail investors even out there. Do they add on NVIDIA to their portfolio, and what's the strategy there kind of post-split?
Yeah, I mean, we're from our perspective, split or post-split doesn't matter to us, but I think there's still very favorable risk reward on NVIDIA here. We think that they can do close to $50 in earnings, and that sort of earnings power, NVIDIA is trading very attractively relative to its broader peers, right? Kind of in the high teens, low 20s multiple, which is very attractive from a valuation perspective from our point of view.
John, I want to get your thoughts on what we heard from Jensen about supply. Clearly, demand is there, but there are certainly some supply challenges at this point for NVIDIA. Here's what he had to say to Yahoo Finance last night.
Every component, every part of our data center is the most complex computer the world's ever made, and so it's sensible that almost everything is constrained.
So, John, what position does that leave NVIDIA? Because, yes, it's a good position to be in to a certain extent. You want that demand to be there, but you also don't want it to hinder and weigh on growth as well, too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of a near-term constraint as they start to ramp Blackwell into the second half. But I think NVIDIA has done a magnificent job of setting up their product roadmap so that it can seamlessly transition and work through these supply constraints, right? As the supply chain and as NVIDIA starts to ramp Blackwell into the second half, recall that they are also ramping H200, right, which is kind of a next generation H100 GPU as part of the Hopper family. That GPU is not really supply constrained. So as they're ramping that, we believe that NVIDIA obviously is going to be able to work through these supply constraints and ship to volume probably late this year on B100.
John Vinh, who is the KeyBanc Capital Markets Equity Research Analyst. John, always a pleasure to grab some of your insights. Thanks for hopping on to break down NVIDIA's latest financial performance with us.